Yes. Okay, lights camera.
Action. हरि ओम शुक्लां वरदं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये व्यासं वसिष्ठनप्तारं शक्ते स्तोत्रमकल्मषं पराशरात्मजं वन्दे सुखतातं तपोनिधिं व्यासाय विष्णुरूपाय व्यासरूपाय विष्णवे नमो वै ब्रह्मनिधये वासिष्ठाय नमो नमः निगमकल्पतरोर्गलितं फलं सुखमुखात् अमृतद्रवं संयुतं पिबत भागवतं रसमालयं मुहुरहो रसिका पुलिभावुकाः. Okay. So today's kind of discussion, it has multiple stories, but I'll start with something slightly tangential to religion itself and to probably the personality of God and so on, which is talking about a little bit of astronomy. So the first story was basically given as the creation of the universe, but to kind of understand the other contributions towards science of that particular story, we probably look at just understand a little bit about time scales and astronomy. But before that, we have an interesting shloka which is not part of any of what I had covered. It is interesting in its own right. It says, Charamak Visheshanam Aneko Samyuta Sada Paramanu Savigneyo Grinam Aikya Brahmo Yataha. So this basically talks about what is known as Paramanu, which is atom. So at that time itself, this conception of atom, something being indivisible, further indivisible, and all particles being made of atoms, that was well known at that time. So it was considered as an ultimate particle, it is indivisible, and it is not formed by any other particle. This kind of knowledge existed, right? So this is basically shows that even these type of so-called religious texts have a lot of science in them. They have actually discussed all of these in great detail, including astronomy, not including a lot of time scales. But I will not discuss time scales from Bhagavata. I rather go into slightly later verse by Aryabhata, which will come after. So actually, there are two types of time systems. Right? One is the Yuga type of system, which goes into Yuga, Manvantara, and so on. There is another type of solar years system, which Aditya sir in his course Astronomy in India taught very briefly. So I'll just present some content from this slide. It just says one yuga consists of 5 solar years. This is slightly orthogonal to the concept of yuga which we have usually. And then there are 5 constituent years of this yuga, right, which is called Samvatsara, Parivatsara, Idavatsara, Anuvatsara, and Idvatsara. So there are 5 solar years which is part of the yuga, and these of them, some of them are mentioned even in the Rig Veda. For example, Samvatsara, which comes in one of the verses which I will talk about later. Parivatsara also comes in Bhagavatam a couple of times, and these are also mentioned in the Taittiriya Samhita and so on. This is one type of yuga system. I didn't have enough time to research on what these 5 solar years actually meant in terms of actual time scales of human years. But I will present the other orthogonal system which is more commonly known, which is very succinctly put in this particular verse of Aryabhatiya. It says, I'll just read out. So, Kaho Manamodha Manayugaha Shakha Gataste Cha Manayugaha Chna Cha Kalpa De Yugapada Ga Cha Guru Divasacha Bharatat Purvam. So this is a very interesting type of verse. Like many of the words do not have any meaning. Like what is Chna? There is no meaning. But this actually is a very ingenious system developed by Aryabhata. It's called the Aryabhata system of numerals. So there they have a very elaborate system of saying each vowel is considered as 10 power. So A is 10 power 0, then E is 10 power 2 and so on. So it goes like that, and then each consonant has its own. So Ka Kha Ga Gha Na say 1 to 25, and then Yara Lava is multiples of 10. So So this is the type of system they use, and they kind of come up with these obscure type of words, weird sounding words to represent very large numbers. So that this is the verse, and the meaning is basically this: a day of Brahma or a kalpa is equal to a period of 14 manus. Okay, so usually Brahma is kind of considered as the Another important thing here is every being, right, has a lifespan. Nobody is immortal except the Godhead, so-called Godhead, which is Parabrahman. Okay, so only that person. I mean, I don't know if I should call it a person, but only Parabrahman has an infinite. It doesn't have a lifespan. Everybody else, for creations of Parabrahman, they have a lifespan. So that is basically again the cycle of creation and destruction keeps continuing, with the only permanent entity being Parabrahman. That is a philosophy which is pretty common in Indian philosophy in general, and in this Bhagavata Purana, that Parabrahman is considered as Narayana or Vishnu. Other Puranas may consider Parabrahma as different other entities and so on. So Brahma is considered the longest living being in this particular system, and it says day of Brahma or a kalpa is equal to a period of 14 manus, and the period of 1 manu is equal to 72 yugas. So this yuga is not individual yugas, right? So we have 4 yugas, but this yuga is what is called as a Maha Yuga, which is the combination of these 4 yugas. So you have Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, and so on, right? So these 4 yugas is basically the sum of which is a Maha Yuga, and these yugas are split in the ratio of 4:3:2:1. So together each of these, the sum of these is what is a Mahayuga. Right? And 72 Mahayugas is equal to the period of a Manu, is a Manvantara. Okay, and then he also gives the current time. Okay, since Thursday, the beginning of the current Kalpa, 6 Manus, 27 yugas and 3 quarter yugas had elapsed before the beginning of the current Kali Yuga, before Bharata. So this is the current timeline of where we are currently. It is usually considered that a day of Brahma. So Brahma has a day and a night. Right? So during the daytime of Brahma there is creation, and during the night time of Brahma there is destruction. So half the cycle is for creation and other half is for destruction. That is what I inferred. But this is how you have looked at time scales. It is always the sense of creation and destruction. And so the creation, it comes from this particular entity which is known as Parabrahman. And I don't want to call it as Godhead, I'll just call it as Parabrahman. So the verse goes like this: Hiranmaya sa Purushaha Sahasra Parivatsaran Andakosha Uvasapsu Sattva Sattvopa Brahmitaha. Okay, so this is Hiranmaya. So Hiranmaya is considered as another name for what is known as the Virat Rupa of Parabrahma. Right? So this Hiranmaya basically is considered a golden form, golden colored form of Parabrahman, which is also called as the Virat Rupa of Vishnu in this particular text of Bhagavata. Right? From there, right, there are 23 principal elements which are set in action in some particular order. I will not describe all this in detail, but I will just go into some of the elements or some of the other deities which were born out of this Parabrahman. Right? So it said that it was set in action by the will of the Supreme. So all this creation and destruction happens at the will of some unknown entity called Parabrahman. Okay, and this is a gigantic and universal form. So there is it's not localized, it is omnipresent, you can say, it's universal. At the time of creation, probably it could have been, there's nobody to observe it, but that was probably an all-pervasive form. It can be argued that it was an all-pervasive form. And this is also called as a Vishwarupa form of the Lord. So the gigantic Virat Purusha of this golden color was the central being at the time of creation. And from that, it is given a human form, and then from that human form, each part of the human form, different entities came into life. Right? And before these entities came into life, it was said that this form lived for 1000 celestial years, but they use the term Parivatsara, which is again the oldest, first system I talked about, right? The 5 solar years. So I really don't know how much time this really means, but you can infer that it's a very long time. So it was dormant for 1000 celestial years. Sahasra Parivatsaran, for that in Sanskrit. And then it lay dormant on the water of the universe. That's what is written. And all the living entities lay within him. And so creation had not happened yet. All the entities were a part of Parabrahman. But they are not yet in God a form which we can call creation just yet. And for 1000 celestial years, it was just dormant. Then after that, by the will of Parabrahman, it decided to create forms. And then the first type of form which came out, right? This can also, it can be interpreted in a scientific lens, but I prefer not to do that. I'll just give what is mentioned. And the first type of, you can think about like what happens when a baby is born, right? What is the first sign of a baby being born? Something comes, some speech comes out of its mouth. Some energy comes out of its mouth. In the same way, the first thing that came out is from the mouth of Parabrahman, from the mouth of this Virat Purusha. And what came out was energy. And this energy is basically the energy which we use for all our rituals and sacrifices, which is Agni. The first thing that came out from this supreme form was Agni. And that Agni is a manifestation of energy. So this is, in line with what we also can think of from the universe standpoint, right? You need energy to set anything in motion. Without energy, nothing will happen. It's a dormant form. What should come out of it first? It should be energy. And after that, from the palate, water came out. And again, like all these are correlated to both things, in the sense water, energy, fire, and also some sort of senses of humans. So it is also corroborated with taste. If the water came out and it is corroborated with taste. Then from the nostrils, the Ashwini Kumaras, they emerged. And that is, they are the deities of smell. Right? So each of these sort of everyday things are assigned a deity. And then those deities came out from the form of Parabrahman. Right? From the eyes, the sun came out, Surya came out. And that is the deity for vision, sight. And then from the skin, right? So this is again an interesting thing, right? So they had a very good advanced view of human anatomy. They knew each body part and how it functioned, what it is used for very well. Right? So that's why there are 23 principal elements, and then they kind of clearly correlate what each body part is used for physically. And you can see that the skin comes out the god of wind, which is Anila. You can technically call it breeze, but just like that you feel the breeze on your skin, right? So that is what they are trying to say here. And then, another thing after that, after all this came out, you have everything. You have water, you have energy, you have the sun, you have wind. So you have all the elements ready. And now you need something for life. There is no life yet. It's just physical things have come out. So from the genitals comes out Prajapati. So Prajapati is again a simple Sanskrit word which is Praja. Praja is basically a term used for creation. The Lord of creation is Prajapati. So that Lord came out, and that Lord is basically a synonym for sexual pleasure. So creating humans. So now comes life. Till now there was no life, now comes life. After that, other body parts, right? From the hands came out Indra. So Indra is a god for transaction, business. That is what is mentioned in the creation. A business for livelihood and so on. And this is again the demigod who comes out from the legs, which is Vishnu, not Parabrahman, but the demigod Vishnu, who is one of the sons of Aditi as per the Veda. Right? That Vishnu, which is not equivalent to at least here it is not considered same as Parabrahman. that is Vishnu comes out. And Vishnu is a deity for movement. Similarly, intelligence, the deity for intelligence is Brahma. Interestingly, the deity which comes out on the heart is Chandra, the moon. And so they had a very clear sense of what is aesthetic, right? What is from the heart, what comes naturally. If you see the moon, your heart jumps with joy. This same type of, they had a very kind of advanced sense of aesthetics, along with an advanced sense of understanding body parts, right? To give this this thing in any order could have made valid sense in a religious context, but it had to make it kind of illustrates the kind of advancement that they had in both in terms of aesthetics, what felt aesthetic to them and what physically these things mean. And then another important lord which came out is from the Ahankara of Parabrahman. The lord who came out from the Ahankara is Buddha. So you need all these types of things, right? It's not only that you have positive things coming out, right? You need all sorts of emotions which we feel today need to be created, and all of them are created without exception from this Virat Purusha as per the Bhagavata. Then consciousness, in the deity of consciousness came out, which is Vijnana. So conscious knowledge is Vijnana. So all these have come out. So you have got elements, you have got life. And then now you are kind of getting structure, right? You first created everything, but there isn't any structure. You only created individual things, but how do you kind of reason about them from a structural standpoint? So you kind of create all the planets. So you create a structure, the solar system, the planets, and the universe, in terms of the physical bodies which are part of the universe. And all of these are assigned some demigod type deity. And then after that you kind of created the Vedic wisdom. So first you have created elements, you created life, you have created structure. Now you give out your wisdom, and that comes out in the form of Veda. A Veda is all knowledge. So first you have created everything, and now you are giving knowledge to that. So those who are inclined to this Vedic knowledge, they are called Brahmanas, and they are the natural teachers and spiritual masters of all the orders of society. Right? So after that you have given knowledge. Now you kind of decide, okay, how does society structure itself to preserve this knowledge, and who does what in society. So that is the Varnashrama system which comes out. So all of these systems, kind of social systems, also come out from various body parts of the Parabrahman. Right? So from here the Kshatriyas also come out, and then their role is to protect society from thieves and miscreants, and so on. So all of these Vaishyas come out to help in production of grain, and Shudras, they come out from the legs of Parabrahma, and their role is to satisfy the Lord by service. This is what is given. Somehow some negative connotation is attached to this word, which I don't think makes sense here, because there is no greater bhagyam or whatever than to satisfy the Lord by service. And everybody else has some very fixed set of duties. The role of a Shudra is just to submit yourself to the Lord and serve the Lord. There is probably no other greater type of role given to you than this. It's another interesting thing after this creation has happened is that the Bhagavatam tries to make sense of who understands the original Virat Rupa, right? Who understands this creation which has happened. Can anybody comprehend it? Is the question which is asked. And interestingly, it is said that even the greatest, this is called an illusion beyond illusions. All this creation is some sort of hyper illusion which even the greatest Mayavis, they cannot comprehend what has happened. Some sort of higher illusion than all of that. And it is somehow interestingly also said that even Lord himself cannot identify his complete nature. It is that type of nature that reflexivity fails, right? Even in your own, you can't identify your own self. You are that powerful. That is the type of omnipresence which God has. Right? If God Himself can't kind of identify His complete nature, who else can? So this is the type of physical question which can leave us at the end of creation, which is Parabrahman by his will creates, but does Parabrahman himself understand the creation? Right? That is a question which they have said probably not. Even Parabrahman can't understand what he has created. That big of an illusion. That is how this kind of thing ends. And therefore, right, since this type of form is beyond anybody's comprehension, probably even its own comprehension, the only thing we can do is we simply have to offer a respectful obeisances to him as a matter of sanity. Right? Otherwise, we will go insane. That is what is written. It's such a form which nobody can comprehend. It is so omnipresent, so powerful, and it is and it can. Since reflexivity phase, nobody can kind of comprehend it. Meaning, no, it's factually true that nobody can comprehend it. Only thing you can do is submit yourself to it and hope for the best. So I mean, my stories don't have continuity, so it will be very weird if I just keep moving on. But sadly, there is not much continuity to this the set of stories which I have to tell. So now I'll move on from creation, the myth of creation, to the story of Jada Bharata. This is a pretty interesting story since that slightly difficult to understand what exactly is the message being conveyed. So I'll try my best to give the message which I think is relevant, although I am no qualified person to give the ultimate message which was intended to be conveyed there. Right? So this Jada Bharata is a manifestation, it's a rebirth of the king Bharata. So Bharata is the king on whom this country is named after. So it's named Bharata after this king Bharata. It is not the same Bharata as Ramayana. It is a different one. Right? So this Bharata was obviously a very righteous king, and he did whatever his work was supposed to be, and he was a very exalted figure in his time. Right? But what happened was, obviously he was a devout bhakta of Parabrahman or Vishnu. And after that, what happened was that towards the end of his life, right, when he had retired to his ashrama somewhere, he kind of saw some sort of thing which made him differ from what he usually used to practice. And that is that I think a lion, right, a lion kind of, he is just wandering around in the forest, and a lion attacked a deer. And the deer was very frightened for its life, and it just ran somewhere, and then it gave birth. It was pregnant at that time, so it gave birth to a calf, or it is called a doe. And then the deer kind of ran somewhere. I think it fell off a cave or something like that, and it died. And so this Bharata saw this particular incident, and he was deeply moved by this incident, and he kind of started developing a feeling of affection towards the young, just born calf, and he thought that it was his responsibility to protect that particular creature. So then he brought that deer to his ashrama, and then he began to raise it every day by giving it some grass and nourish the deer. And now what happened was that slowly the attachment kept growing. So eventually, in the beginning, he just gave it some grass and raised it. After that, he was very careful to protect it from attacks of wild animals like tigers. So he was very careful. So most of his attention went towards protecting the deer from dying. And then when it itched, he petted it. So now this has become an obsession, right? So it started from affection, and then it kind of grew into attachment, and then now it's simply obsession. So this is again a kind of interesting thing, right? So we all know that our parents are attached to us. But if you're obsessed with something, whether it be your own child, or whether it be your best friend, or whether it be your husband or wife or whatever, right? That is not correct, because there is always that you should. It's not that you should not be close to them or you should not love them, but you should not be obsessed with them. Obsession is something which is like it grows more into a negative form of addiction. Right? If you're obsessed with something, it's not something which is really good. And the results of which you can see here. That he was always concerned about the deer. He always wanted to keep it comfortable. Anytime it had even the slightest, slightest feeling or slightest, did not feel as comfortable, he would immediately go and pet it and so on. He sometimes kissed it out of love. So he was that attached, and you can say obsessed with raising this particular deer. And then because of this, what happened was that whatever was his particular duty, right, his karma of getting a spiritual life, leading a spiritual life, doing his daily duties and so on, those also began to get neglected in the face of this love. And there I call it obsession. So he gradually forgot to worship the Supreme Personality of Parabrahman. And he forgot everything about his spiritual advancement. So he forgot everything. Whatever he set out to do, he got distracted by this particular obsession, and he could not continue further on his spiritual path. Right? So because of that, what happened was that although he had done many good things in the past, but because of this particular obsession which he developed later in his life, eventually, after the deer died, the soul of the deer entered him. So he was now born as a deer. So after that, he kind of realized that okay, what I had done was wrong. Right? I was supposed to be focusing on Parabrahman, but I ended up focusing on something which is perishable, right? Which is a deer. If I focus on something perishable and leave out the ultimate, then that is a mistake. So that is what he kind of understood. And he continued on his spiritual journey as he was born as a deer in his Janma. But he knew, he had done enough good things that he knew what had happened in his previous Janma and so on, right? Which is impossible in present day. He did not disclose his he just left his family deer. He knew he was a deer, but he was much more conscious than a normal deer. He knew what had happened in the past, and he just retreated to some forest and he prayed to Parabrahma. He went to the forest of what is called Shalagrama, and he prayed to Parabrahma. And that was this Janma. In the third Janma, right? So it is often said that to attain moksha, you have to attain it from a human form. So the third Janma, he was born as a Jada Bharata. So Bharata, after one Janma was a deer, then second Janma was Jada Bharata. And he was born in a pure Brahmana family. Right? So he was from a dynasty called Angira. And he was fully qualified with Brahmanical qualifications. He could control his mind and senses. He had studied, his family, I'm not talking about him, his family, right? His family was a very, very knowledgeable family. So, they had all the good qualities and so on. Right? So, all of the family, he had a brother and a sister and all that. So, all their entire family was a very devout and probably, can't say devout, it was a very knowledgeable. And again, because of his, because of the mercy of Parabrahman, he again could remember this previous Janma. So again, now he knew that this was a Janma where he had to get moksha finally. He had to undergo an extra Janma because of that obsession, but now this Janma was the Janma where he had to attain moksha. And so again, although he received the body of a Brahmana, he was still very much afraid of his relatives and friends who are not devotees. So, once you reach the stage, you know that what is real and what is not. So, you see people around you who are subsumed in material pleasures and so on, you kind of feel like something is not right. He also did not want to associate with such people. And he thought that, okay, now I reached this stage, now I should not associate myself with the wrong people and again fall down. Otherwise, again you have to go into the cycle of birth and death and take longer for you to get moksha. So because of that, what happened was that this is interesting in the sense that generally we kind of have a very negative connotation to these characteristics. So I will tell you the characteristics. So in the public eye, what he was thought of as a number one madman, dull, blind and deaf. Usually this is considered a very characteristic of not a very good characteristic of people. It's considered a lower characteristic. If you're a mad person. So, but this was intentional, right? He did not want to associate himself with any of the other people there, and he wanted to make sure that he is always on the right path, always thinking of Parabrahman. Therefore, he had to behave like this. He was dull, blind, and he behaved dull, blind, and deaf. And in this way, he saved himself from bad association. And then always he was only thinking about the lotus feet, very common phrase, lotus feet of Parabrahman. And he was not, he never wanted to associate with temporary things like people, other people who did not have devotion, and so on. So, he kind of knew that the only way to get moksha was to kind of lead a life only thinking about Parabrahman in this janma. He was given a chance. But what happened was that his family was just thought of him as a normal child, a normal Brahmana. So what will happen? You will teach your son the Veda, right? You will teach your son how to be a grihastha and all that. So, but that was not relevant there because the only thing he needed to do was just, he did not need to do all that because he just needed to meditate and get moksha, right? He did not have to go through this process of grihastha and brahmacharya and so on. He knew that, so therefore he was unwilling to accept these instructions. Typically he has instructions, right, to do karma yoga and so on. But he did not have to do that because he knew, okay, that my past history was this and what I need to do to get moksha. And therefore he was, whatever his father instructed him, he never obeyed. So whatever, therefore society in general thought of him as a fool, some sort of dumb person who did not know anything, some sort of like a village ruffian or anything like that, who was just basically not very smart or intelligent. That was what was considered by society. His father tried to instruct him in the Veda, but he did not bother to obey to that instruction either because at that stage of his soul's journey, it was unnecessary. So therefore his father, he behaved wantedly in a way so that his father abandoned his instruction. All this is a waste of time when you are only thinking about God. And he would behave in a completely opposite way and he would not follow any rules. This is what is his background. Even his father tried to teach him Gayatri Mantra, but his father was not successful because he never was interested in all these things. This was a kind of thing. This is for me also it was a bit interesting to see that at that end stage, right, you will mostly be completely detached and you will not be able to really kind of respond to any standard teaching and so on. So that is what was his background. And here, this is a story of true devotion. So, in the phase of devotion, if you are devoted to something, you don't need to be very learned to be devoted. This is the kind of story which we can understand from here. You take a slight detour. I don't know, when I was talking to my grandmother about this particular story, why are they portraying him as a dumb person? She gave me the story of another, this is a Shaiva sort of considered a saint called an Ayana. It is the story of Kannappan Ayana. So basically, there again, what had happened was that he was a devout bhakta of Shiva. He continuously only was thinking about Shiva, and he was a regarded linga to which he prayed. And then suddenly, what happened was that one of the eyes of the linga started bleeding. And immediately, like, without hesitation, and if we were in that position, we would think 1,000,000 times before taking any action. But there, he did without hesitation. This is what is devotion. You do things without hesitation. Without hesitation, he plucked out his eye and he put it there to arrest the bleeding. He plucked out one of his eyes. And after some time, the second eye also started bleeding. So now he had to remove both his eyes. But there was a problem, right? If you remove both your eyes, how do you know where to place the second eye? So he marked the spot with his foot before plucking out the second eye. And then when he was about to pluck the second eye, Shiva came in front of him. So this is the type of devotion. None of this makes sense to us. But if you are devoted, then you will do whatever it takes if you have that belief. That's what I just want to say here. At least I was confused when I read this type of thing, but it kind of makes sense eventually. So there are two stories of this Jada two incidents which happened in his life. One of them was that there is usually at that time there was a culture of human sacrifice. So you want to perform any sort of any sort of prayer or any sort of yajna probably. There was a human sacrifice involved, and this human sacrifice was supposedly done by a group of dacoits. They were supposed to, they are actually they are violent people who kill others and steal and so on, and they are dacoits. So those people wanted to kind of do some ritual, and for that they had to sacrifice one human. And they landed upon the sacrifice of Jada. They wanted some dumb person, right, who was was not intelligent, low IQ type of person, because that is probably the nature of the ritual. And then they chose this Jada to sacrifice to the goddess Kali. So the ritual was done towards goddess Kali. And then things started taking a bad turn, right? Because you are trying to sacrifice a bhakta of Parabrahma, and that obviously won't go well. So what happened was that when the sacrifice was attempted, goddess Kali was infuriated, and she displayed her fierce curved teeth, her reddish eyes glowed, and she displayed her fearsome features. She assumed a frightening body, as if she was prepared to destroy the entire entire creation. Leaping violently from the altar, she immediately decapitated all the rogues and thieves with the very sword with which they had intended to kill Jada. So this is how you end up paying for your mistake. If you want to sacrifice the bhakta of Parabrahma or Vishnu, you face these consequences. Kali is also, all these gods, they know what is going on. So if you make such mistakes, then you get punished. Then she began to do this a very, Ghora type of form. So she destroyed all of them with her curved teeth. With their own weapon which they wanted to kill this Jada, the goddess just killed them and started drinking their blood. Right? So she then began to drink the hot blood that flowed from the necks of the beheaded rogues and thieves, as if this blood was liquor. Right? She was that enraged, and she was in that type of situation that she just drank all their blood, and as if it was liquor. She drank this intoxicant with her associates, who were witches and female demons. Becoming intoxicated with this blood, they all began to sing very loudly and dance, as though prepared to annihilate the entire universe. This is a type of consequence which, if you harm a bhakta, right, this is a type of consequence which happens. Not only do you suffer, but the entire creation suffers. That is typically what ends up happening. They get so angry that they kind of take these type of steps. And then they began to play with the heads of the rogues and thieves, tossing them about as if they were balls. So this is the most gruesome thing which you can think of. And that happened to these dacoits. Simply for trying to sacrifice a person who was, they thought he had low IQ, but he was on the path of moksha. This is a miscalculation, and therefore they paid the heavy price. This is one of the stories of Jada. The second story of Jada is also very interesting, but at the same time very philosophical. So I will not go into all the philosophy which is a part of this particular story, but I will kind of give a glimpse as to what was mentioned here. Right, so there was this particular king called Rahugana. So he was a normal king, and he was just going around in a palanquin. Right, so he was basically a type of very strict ruler. So anybody who did not carry the palanquin properly, the king used to scold them. You know that the carriers were all very scared of this king. Right, so basically what happened was that they somehow found this Jada just walking around, right, aimlessly walking around, and they thought, okay, this guy is like just what do you call it? Somebody who is just aimless in life, right? He is not doing anything fruitful in life. Let us just give him the job of lifting this palanquin. He looks like a strong person. Let him just carry this palanquin. But what happened was that this palanquin, four people are carrying this palanquin, right? But It so happens that even if one person doesn't carry it properly, the palanquin will be very unstable. You can say some unstable equilibrium, it may have tendency to fall off if somebody doesn't carry it properly. So all four people need to carry it properly. But this Jada Bharata, he was always thinking about Parabrahman. He was not at all interested in carrying this palanquin. He was not at all interested and he did not do it properly. Obviously, if you are just like that, right? If you are you're focused on one thing and then you are asked to do multitasking, right? You will fail miserably. Right? So this is what is happening to his situation. He is asked to multitask when he has no interest in multitasking. And therefore the other palanquin bearers, right? They kind of complained that this particular guy was not carrying the palanquin properly, and they complained to the king. Then the king was very angry. He became very angry that my palanquin is not being carried and these people are making a mess out of the whole thing. It's a simple job, carry the palanquin. Why are you making hue and cry about it? So this king, although he was they said that he was advanced in political science and he was very experienced, but he still had not conquered anger. There is no use of knowing political science if you are not able to conquer anger. His anger arose due to his inborn nature as a king, he said. Okay, so he basically arose out of emotions such as passion, and therefore he just spoke to this Jada Bharata. And he was clear that he was a Brahmana, and it was said that he looked like a fire covered by ashes. I don't know what that means. But yeah, he ended up having to speak to this Jada Bharata. He was very unhappy with Jada Bharata. And naturally, as a king, right, you are influenced by worldly desires, you are influenced by passion. You are influenced, basically, because of that, you are ignorant of the true reality. Then you are more interested about bodily wealth, more interested about nature's modes of passion. He was so mad that he kind of started scolding this Jada Bharata with uncalled for and contradictory words. He said, when you are in that state, right, you say X and then immediately say not X because you are not thinking rationally when you are angry. So you start saying all these contradictory words to scold them for, uncalled for, no reason at all to mention this. But although the king was learned, he did not understand. He did not have enough knowledge to know that, okay, a devotee of Parabrahman in his in final stages of getting moksha, the behavior will be such. He did not know that. So he thought this was a normal person. He did not see the signs that this was actually a devotee and he was in this particular state. He thought he was a normal person and he was making a mistake and started scolding Jada Bharata. Okay, so this is basically thought of as whom, if I tell this story without giving the background of Jada Bharata, you will think that the king was right and this Jada Bharata was wrong. Because Jada Bharata was not doing his duty and the king had every right to criticize Jada Bharata for not doing his duty. But the important thing that was missed was that Jada Bharata was not knowledgeable enough to understand. The king was not knowledgeable enough to understand that Jada Bharata was actually a devotee of Parabrahman and he was going towards the path of moksha. So he did not know the characteristics of such a person. And therefore, Jada Bharata, obviously, right, when you are in that type of a state, you are actually very wise. You know the nature of reality. Therefore, Jada Bharata was not, if you think you have not made a mistake and somebody scolds you, your natural reaction is to scold them back or retort or try to fight, raise your voice. But he did none of that. He knew that all of this was an illusion. And once you know all of this, you just respond in a very calm manner. So you attain that type of state that you know that bodily conception is not reality. You knew all that. So this Brahmana, right, what did he say? Brahmana uvacha tvayoditam vyaktam avipralabdham partu samesya yadivira bharah gantur yadi syad adhigamya madhva dive tiraso navidam pravadah. So he says, Brahmana uvacha, the learned Brahmana spoke. Tvayoditam, so whatever you had said, whatever you told about me, which is that I was dumb, I was not doing my work properly, all of that is true. whatever you have spoken is true. He just admits that whatever you have spoken is true. And actually, these are not simply words of chastisement, but the body is the carrier. And the load carried by the body does not belong to me. Okay, so now really imagine, right? So you have scolded some fool. You think you have scolded some foolish person, and now he says, the body is the carrier. The load carried by the body does not belong to me. So it's some very deep philosophical concept, right? So this is like, I mean, whatever the body does, it is not my doing. And this Atma, the soul, that is what matters. If there is no contradiction in your statements, although there were contradictions, if you don't assume, I mean, if you just look at it by face value, he says there is no contradiction. Avipralabdham, no contradictions. Because I am different from the body. When you scold me, you are trying to scold my body, you are not looking beyond the body. I am not the carrier of the palanquin. The body is the carrier. So it's like saying, you should not use this logic in day-to-day life. You should use this logic when you are in that state of, when you are close to moksha. None of us probably will ever be. I am not the carrier of the palanquin, the body is the carrier. Certainly, as you have hinted, I am not labored carrying the palanquin, for I am detached from the body. So this is a type of philosophical truth. So me, I, that motion is not the physical body, it's not physical. I mean, that much everybody should accept, right? Because the feeling of oneself is not a physical feeling. Because it cannot be understood by physical means. There's something beyond physical. Right? That is, I think, universally kind of understood. Yes. I mean, if such a concept of I exists, it should be non-physical. And therefore, that is what is permanent. Right? The soul is what is permanent, and body is just temporary. It's just going to wither away and die after some point. The soul will never die. So you have said that I am not stout and strong, and these words are befitting a person who does not know the distinction between body and soul. It's to accuse you for something which a body did. Some these hints that you do not know the difference between the body and the soul. Obviously, I mean, the king did not have enough knowledge about all these deep philosophical matters, and neither do I. So I am not going to delve much deeper into this, but I will continue this for some more time. Okay, so therefore, the soul is what determines what a person is, and not the body. The body can be anything. The body can be skinny or fat, but that doesn't affect the soul. So therefore, I mean, anything you say about the body doesn't really matter. It's all about the soul. So therefore, all these journey, every material journey, none of these are actually of the soul. They are all of the body. And therefore, they don't relate to me. He says they don't relate to me, but they relate only to my body. Therefore, there is no trouble at all. So there is no pain, there is no pleasure. So all emotions are out, because all of them are physical. If you face body pain, right, that is not you. It is just your body, and you are something beyond that body. So there is another line which comes: Staulyam karshyam vyadaya adayascha shutrit bhayam kalir ichchadara cha nidra ratir manyurabam madakshucho dehe na jatasya ime na santi. It's a fatness, staulyam, it's being stout, karshyam is being skin, vyadhi means any disease, adhaya is apparently pains of the mind. So all of these are all not very physical in nature, and they do not really matter for the soul. And therefore, this Jada Bharata is in a state where he is free from all these feelings of bodily pain, bodily nature, and he is not affected by these things. So, okay, then it says, Jivan Vritatvam Niyamena Rajan Adyantavadyadvikritasya Drishtam Swaswamya Bhavo Dhruva Idyayatra Taryuchatesho Vidhikritya Yogaha. So, Jivat Vritatvam, the quality of being dead while living. So the king, he accuses the king of saying that unnecessarily, he said the king unnecessarily accused me of being dead though alive. So again he's just saying, right, this is just the temporary nature of the body itself, right? He says, today you are a king, I am your servant. Tomorrow nobody knows what is going to happen, right? Tomorrow I may be your master. All these are all temporary. That's the type of thing which is trying to convey here. The only thing which is permanent is Parabrahman and Atma. Only two things are permanent. Everything else is temporary and it is going to change. So whatever you tell me today doesn't really matter because the tables will turn tomorrow. We never know. So this is also giving an important lesson, right? That you should treat everyone with compassion. You should not think that you are superior or for that matter inferior to anybody else. Today you may be, you may have a boss and that person will tell you what to do and so on. Tomorrow you may be their boss. Nobody knows nobody really understands what is going to happen. In the beginning I said Parabrahman himself doesn't understand creation. How are you going to understand it? All this is going to be temporary. Only that particular form is permanent. Everything else is just created with the will of Parabrahman, which you don't know. So there is no point trying to accuse people or try to be hurtful to people, trying to harm people. You should always, the lesson here is you should always be good to people, whoever they are. And all this sense of authority, right, that I am controlling you or you are under my control, these are all false notions because Atma is the true thing and body and everything else, worldly position, everything else is temporary. It is going to not last forever. And what is not going to last forever is not that important in comparison to what actually does last forever. Right? So this is the nature of reality which I describes in detail. But I will stop here for paucity of time and I go on to the next story, which is another cute but very deep story, which is the story of Dhruva. Right? So here I use some of Narayanian's verses also because it's like a nice song. It goes like this. The first verse goes like this in Narayanian. उत्तानपाद नृपतेर मनुनंदनस्य जाया बभूव सुरुचि नितरामभीष्टा अन्यासु नीतिरिति भर्तुरनावृता सा त्वामेव नित्यमगति शरणं गता भूत. So the Narayanian is basically a kind of condensed form of Bhagavatam. It was composed by Pattabhi in Kerala. There's a long story about that also, but it's considered a very kind of short and sweet form of Bhagavatam. So this entire Dhruva Charitra, which is multiple parts of the Bhagavata, is put in one, just 10 shlokas in Narayana. This is the first. Uttana Pada Nripater Manunandanasya. So this is a lineage of Manu. This Dhruva's father was Uttana Pada, he was from the lineage of Manu. And he had two wives. So Jaya Babu was Suruchi was one of his wives. And Nitarama Bhishma. So Suruchi was the favorite wife of the king. Anya, so there is one more wife. Suniti. So Suniti was the name of the other wife. But Iti Bhartura Anadita. So it's like Anadita means you were kind of neglected. So this second wife was neglected by the Uttanapala. So there are two wives. Suruchi was his favorite wife and Suniti, the other wife, was neglected. So basically this Suniti was neglected, she was helpless. And then the only place where she could take refuge was again Parabrahma. So whoever is the situation where they do not have anything material, you always go to Parabrahma. It always that's helpful. And then so this is the first stanza. Basically the story goes that this Dhruva, right? Dhruva was the son of Suniti, and there was a son of Suruchi called Uttama. So Uttama was sitting on the father's lap, Uttanapad's lap, and Dhruva also wanted to try to sit on the father's lap. But again, due to whatever the king's partiality and the other wife's type of character, both the king and Suruchi said that no, you cannot sit on the father's lap. And what she actually said, Suruchi was actually very angry that this Suniti's son was trying to sit in the same position as her own son. And she ended up saying this. I mean, she said it in a bout of anger, presumably, but I mean, we'll see what happens because of this statement. तपसाराध्य पुरुषं तस्यैवानुग्रहेण मे गर्भे त्वं साधयात्मानं यदीच्छसि नृपासनं. So what did she say was tapasaradhya. So only by austerities, tapas. It having satisfied Purusham. Purusham is considered as Parabrahma. Purusha, supreme form. So only when you have done tapas and you have satisfied Purusha, okay, only then can you actually be, and then you have to be reborn as my own son. Okay, so you have to do penance, attain the, satisfy the Parabrahma, Purusha. Then by the mercy of Purusha, this Parabrahma, you will again be reborn as my son, and you will be able to sit on the lap of your father. Right? This is a sort of statement presumably said in anger. But the young child, right, obviously, child did not have the maturity to kind of interpret this statement in the correct human way, and he obviously took it literally. And he goes to his mother saying, "This is what Suruchi has told." So this is the fourth verse in the Narayana. आकर्ण्यसोऽपि भवदच्चनिश्चितात्मा मानी निरेत्य नकरत् किल पञ्चवर्षः सन्दृष्टनारद निवेदितमन्त्रमार्गः त्वामारराध तपसा मधुकाननान्ते. So this is basically the what happens here. So kila panchavarsha, he was only 5 years old. So kila panchavarsha, he was only 5 years old. Sandrishta Narada Nivedita mantra. So this is basically the role of sage Narada here. So he kind of, when Dhruva sets out, this Narada comes and tells him what to do. Because you're only 5 years old, you don't really know what to do to bring the Lord in front of you, or what is the route of tapas, where to go to do tapas. Right? None of this was known by Dhruva at that time. So when he actually went, he tried to go, right? When he was on the way somewhere, he did not know what to do. He was just going. And then this Narada says, meets Dhruva. And then he says, Tatta tataccha bhadram te yamunāyāstatam shuci punyam madhuvanam yatra sanidhyam nityadahare. So he says, I wish good fortune for you. You should go to the bank of the Yamuna. There is a forest named Madhuvana. So you have to go there, and people there you will be purified. And just by going there, you kind of go closer to God. So Narada knew what. Narada is someone who he kind of knows a lot. Probably even knows everything. So he gave this advice. First he tried to dissuade Dhruva from doing this penance. And Dhruva said, I can take your advice, but then no, I want, there's nothing more I can do, right? I already started on this journey, so I have to finish it. There's nothing more I can do. So Narada said, okay, no, good things will happen to you. You just go to Madhuvana and there's some mantra, which I think he did some mantra upadesha to Dhruva. This is basically the Narada Nivedita mantra marga, which I talked about before. Right? So he gave the mantra marga, what kind of mantras to chant and so on, was given by Narada. So basically give some more instructions. So take bath in the Yamuna 3 times a day, and you should perform necessary regulative principles for Ashtanga Yoga and sit down. So some sort of instructions were given to Dhruva, how to bring the Lord and how to satisfy the Lord. The place was given and the kind of means how to do penance. All this was instructed by Narada, the young boy. Right, and then he says, Pranayame advivritta pranendriyamanomalam shane yudasya bhidhaye manasa guruna guru. So basically gives pranayam, so this breathing exercises and 3 types of breathing exercises. Indriya, how to control your senses. Right? Pranendriyamanomalam. So all this focus on your breathing is typical meditation. Right? If you go to any meditation class, maybe how to do pranayama, how to keep your senses under control, how to focus on your breathing. Right? These type of things were given to by Narada. Completely free yourself from all material contamination with great patience. Right? Manasa guruna guru. So guruna guru, Guruna is undisturbed. Guru is considered the supreme master, which is Krishna, so the supreme Godhead. So without disturbance, any disturbance, you have to manasa. So without my mind should be undisturbed, and you should only be focusing on God. So this is what Narada says. So Dhruva when he goes, and now once this Dhruva goes and tries to goes to the forest, right? The father Uttanapada gets very worried, and he also asks whether he could speak to Seth Narada. So Seth Narada comes to the king's court and he says, the father is very afraid. What was going to happen to my son? Right? He is going to go and do this type of austerities which young boy of 5 years old should probably never do. Right? Now you may think of it as child abuse or something of that nature. Right? I mean, that's the same type of fear which Uttanapada had. And Narada comes and he responds, Mama Suchasvatanayam Devaguptam Vishampate Tat Prabhavam Abhijnaya Pravrinte Yat Yasho Jagat. So he says, he consoles the king and says, don't be scared. Don't worry about your son. He is well protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is protected by Parabrahman, and he is, although you will have no actual information of his influence, his reputation is already spread all over the world. So he says, he gives us reassurance that no, your son is under the protection of Bhagavan. Nothing is going, no harm is going, only good things are going to happen to him, no harm is going to happen to him, and he is going to be world famous. Right? So it is like somebody professing when you are 5 years old, right? You will get into IIT and do world famous things like that of that case. Okay. So this is again now once he goes to the forest to do penance, some nice verses are there which describe how his penance gradually becomes harsher. So the first month, right? It says Triratrante Kapit Badarashanah Atmavritti Anusarena Masam Ninyerchayan Harim. So it says Triratrante. So every third day, every third day he eats what? Kapitha. So kapitha is like some fruits. Kapitha badara, some sort of fruits and berries. He eats every third night. Triratrante. Twice. Atma Vritti also only to preserve the body. So he just eats these type of fruits and berries. This is the first month, right? The first month he only had berries every third night. So this is interesting, right? So first the number 3 is used. Next, Vitiyam cha tathamasam shashthe bhakodine trinaparnadibhi shirnaihi kritan bhyarchayan vibhum. So next month, Vitiyam, next month. 3, so the 3 Ratre was the first verse. Now comes Shashthe Bhako. So every 6th day. Now before he had every third day he had berries. But now every 6th day he had Trina Parnadibhi, means only leaves. So now the frequency has also reduced, right? Instead of having every third day, you have every 6th day. And what you used to have, berries are obviously more nourishing than just leaves and the grass. So this penance became sort of like a geometric progression. Right? One arithmetic progression is 3 to 6, and then the task also becomes harder. Where you don't eat only berries to eat only grass. So both of them become usually harder. You eat less frequently and you eat less nourishing things in general. Right? Then it becomes even worse. Tritiyam chanayam masam navame hani abhaksha uttama shlokam upadhavat samadhina. So it's just third month, Tritiyam. So 1, 2, 3. First you had 3, then you had 6. Shashthe. Now you have Navame. So 3, 6, 9. And what did he have? He had the frequency reduced from every third day to every 6th day to every 9th day. And now what did he have? Abhaksha. He drank only water. Every 9th day he drank only water. And Uttama Shlokam. So he was basically using some certain verse. Uttama Shlokam means some probably very exalted shlokas to bring God in front of him. So the task became progressively harder. Now one more is there. So you saw 3, 6, 9. Now you see this. Chaturtham api vaimasam द्वादशे हनि वायुभक्षोचितश्वासो ध्यायन् देवम् अधारयत्. So the fourth month, Chaturthamapi, Dvadashe, every 12th day, 3, 6, 9, 12 has happened. And you started with berries, went to grass, went to water, now Vayu Bhaksho, only air. So you are so deep in meditation that you can only take air every 12th day. Imagine, right? It's progressively harder. So maybe now you can even argue exponentially harder every month. Okay, so then Jita Shvasa, so you only control the breathing process and you Vayu, so you live only on Vayu. So this was what was the progression. And imagine if your child progressed so quickly, right? Exponential progress. It's interesting, right? So some mathematics is also there here. You are demonstrating arithmetic progression. 3, 6, 9, 12. The fourth one, Dhruva Maharaja became a complete master of the breathing exercise. And he inhaled that only every 12th day. And every time he speaking only about Bhagavan. Then one more is there. Panchame maase nuprapte jitashvaso nripatmajah dhyayam brahma padaikena tastho sthano livachalaha. Right, so now all no more 12th day, 15th day, nothing. Right? Basically lived on nothing. He didn't breathe, didn't eat, didn't drink, nothing. Right? 5th month. So this is the exponential progress. Now you have reached almost heading to infinity now. Right? You are so progressed in your meditation that you are able to control everything perfectly. You are able to stand on one leg perfectly like a column without motion and concentrate his mind fully on the purpose. This was the kind of devotion that he had. Probably he was blessed. He had the blessings of Narada. He also had the blessings of Parabrahma. That's why he was able to even do this type of penance. And then what happened was that the effects of this type of penance, right? So the thing is, whenever your Bhagavan, right, doesn't come to the bhakta, something bad will happen. If somebody is praying to you, the Lord doesn't appear in front of you. Right? If your penance is this strong, right? Obviously it is inconceivable for any normal person to do this. Must be some anugraha or something like that. But what happened was that because you were standing on one leg, the pressure, it's once you are so, this is power of concentration. You are so concentrating so much on Bhagavan that the leg, big toe, just pushed, the earth just crumbled under the force of just one leg of a 5-year-old child. This is the event which happened. You can imagine how much. And there's also two things, right? Physical strength can only take you so far. This is the power of mental strength. That you are so fixated on one thing, so full of thoughts on only one thing, that is the supreme being, that your physical strength just amplifies. And your big toe, just a big toe pushed down the earth. It looked like the earth was rocking from side to side like an elephant being carried on boat rocks. This is the kind of analogy given. And he basically, was in such a situation that everybody felt suffocated. There was no Vayu. Since he was not living on Vayu, he did not even, his breathing was so much under control that he did not need Vayu. So the effect was so severe that all the demigods, right, all the devas, they ran to Vishnu. Had any problem, right, you run to Vishnu. That is the usual thing. Any problem you have, you just run. And they said, we cannot breathe. Right, so please, the ultimate shelter and please. But they all went to Vishnu. Please save us, we are not able to breathe. So the penance of this 5-year-old had shaken the world so much that nobody was able to breathe. This is the power of simple meditation and focus on God. And therefore, the Bhagavan had to come and intervene and say that, okay, I now save you from this situation and I will go appear in front of the boy. The thing is that this boy was so young, right, that when he saw the Lord, he was just stunned in silence. He did not know what to say because he had not been trained in any sort of prayers or shlokas other than the Narada initial training. He could not adjust himself immediately. He saw he was very Kataksha happened, but he was not sure of what to say. And so, what ended up happening was that in order to kind of the anugraham that Bhagavan kept his conch on I think the face of Dhruva. And then immediately Dhruva became very proficient in composing shlokas and so on. So that is the power of Bhagavan. And then this Dhruva Maharaja, right? What was his wish? The only wish was, I want to sit in the lap of my father. That is all his wish was. That is all his wish was. And but the Bhagavan ended up giving him lot more, right? You will be ruling for many years, and then after that you will become a part of Dhruva Loka. You will become part of the pole star, and you will become very famous everywhere. And Narada already prophesied that, right? He already said your son will become world famous. This is what is the meaning of world famous. Universe famous. You will become the pole star. Anyway, this has an astronomical significance also, because currently the pole star is not what was there at that time. At that time, Dhruva was considered as pole star. So this information is used to date when these works were composed. Bhagavata Purana, Ramayana, Mahabharata, all these astronomical events were used to kind of compute when the date was when it was composed, when it was written down or whatever. It also has an astronomical significance. All the luminaries in the sky circumambulate. If you look at the pole star, if you look just true north, to see the pole star, all the other stars will circumambulate the pole star. Circumambulate means this revolve rotating around the pole star. So Dhruva was at the time the pole star. This is like a very scientific thinking. You had a lot of observational skills, basic astronomy, and you kind of correlated that with mythology. This is what our initiates did, typically. And all of them, say all the great sages, right? Dharma, Agni, Kashyapa, we have the Saptaham, right? Atri, Bhugu, all these people will be circumambulating you. So that's the type of position. Saptaham are 7 stars. So all the stars will be circumambulating Dhruva. That was what was the Anugraha given by Bhagavan. And then he says, after your father goes to the forest and you will be ruling the kingdom for some 36,000 years. And you will never become old and so on. So all these type of things were given. Anugraha was given by Bhagavan. Now, do you think Dhruva will be happy by this Anugraha, or do you think Dhruva will be sad by this Anugraha? Yeah, Dhruva was not happy. I mean, he was like after getting this Anugraha, he just walked off and going back, and he was so extremely sad. He got extremely sad, and he says, "Aho, bata mamanatyam manda bhagyasya pashyata kavachida padamulam tatvayache yatattavat." So he says, "Aho, oh my God, bata, alas, hey, what have I done? So what was this is a mistake, right? Such a big mistake I did. I approached the lotus feet of Parabrahman, and instead of asking for getting rid of the cycle of birth and death, and instead of asking for moksha, I ended up asking for some perishable thing again. Right? So he was like, he did all the hard work, and then the last step he messed up by not asking for moksha. He felt he is very sad. I did so much, and at the end, out of my foolishness, I prayed for something which is perishable. Right, so he says it's very difficult to satisfy Bhagavan, but in my case I satisfied the Bhagavan, but then I prayed for useless things. What is the point of satisfying? I ended up praying only for some physical thing. This was very sad. Right? Instead of praying, to cut one's links from birth and death, I again ended up praying for the same thing again and again. Right? So this is the lamentation of Dhruva. It is a maturity, right? So you exponential growth, and now you have kind of reached maturity there. Still he feels bad, right? He is not feeling proud of himself. He is feeling bad that he missed a trick by not asking for moksha. He went the whole. It is like you go all the way to some far off place, right? For example, you go all the way to Vaishno Devi, and then you don't visit the temple and come back. He is like that. You did all the hard work of going there, but you don't do the thing which matters. For many verses, he is very, very sad. And because of my state of complete foolishness and paucity of pious activities. So although God came in front of me, I did not ask for the right thing, and I instead asked for material fame, prosperity, And my case is just like that of a poor man who, when he satisfied a great emperor who wanted to give him anything he might ask, out of ignorance asked for only a few grains of husked rice. This is what was his thought process, right? I did all the hard work, but in the end I asked for nothing. So this is the one of the this part I did not actually know before reading the Bhagavata. I thought Dhruva just went back and ruled, but actually that he realizes that he made a mistake by not asking for liberation from the cycle of birth and death. Instead, he again asked for the same material conditions which will again kickstart the cycle of birth and death. Just ignorance. He admits that ignorance. It is that shows his character. He did everything. Right? Some impossible things he did, but still he felt bad that I did everything, but I missed out and I asked only for some few grains of first rice in the universal scale, nothing at all. And so then eventually, he did end up getting going to Vaikuntha. And the last, he ruled his kingdom for whatever many years, and then he had to go to Vaikuntha. So he was seated in that airplane. It is called a transcendental airplane. It's not like anything which it's not to be taken literally, but he just says, how do I go alone to Vaikuntha and leave my mother behind? He still, this shows his character. Right? So long he has ruled, and he is still grateful to his mother for actually giving him that bhakti and initiating the process of him going to the forest and praying. And then they actually say that all these great associates of Vaikuntha Loka, so the associates of Vaikuntha Loka, Nanda and Sunanda, they show that just ahead your mother is also going. So both the mother and the child, it end up going to Vaikuntha Loka. This concludes the story of Dhruva. No, two more short stories are there, which is story of Ajamila and so we start with Ajamila. I mostly refer to the Narayanian here because this is a kind of short. I don't want to extend it too long. So it starts with Ajamilo nama Mahishura Pura Charan Nibo Dharma Thapan Prakashami Guru Gira Kanana Mekya Drishtavan Sudrishta Shila Puratam Madakulam. So there was actually Ajamilo nama Mahishura. So he was actually a very famous pious king. Dharma Thapan. So basically he went into the forest, right, for collecting some fire. His father requested him to get some sacrificial fire, and he went to the forest. And there he saw some sort of immoral, immodest woman. So he saw some sort of prostitute type of immodest woman. It is considered as immodest. And that woman is basically was given to drinking. So she was not a very pious woman. She fell. This guy fell for the bad woman, and I don't want to use modern terminology, but he started dating that bad woman. Okay. And then after that, he was obviously right. If you date the wrong person, you pay the price. So he was so attached. Again, the same thing, right? Same thing as before. So you were obsessed with something bad, and he was really attracted to that woman and all that intoxication of alcohol and God. And he led a very unpious life. He gave up all his duties, and he led a very simple life. Right? But there's one thing important which ends up happening. Right? This is probably by sheer luck, but it happens. So it says Adharma Kari Dashami Bhavan Punardado Bhavan. So Punardado Bhavan. So the son's name was thy name, Namayut, Bhavan Namayut. So he by chance named his son Narayana. So despite being sinful, he was still named by chance. The son's name was Narayana. He was very attached to this son also. And then Mrityu Kali. So obviously, if you are given to material pleasures, you will face the time of death. So Samrityu Kale Yamaraja Kinkarane Bhayankara Strina Bhilakshayantiya Pura Amanatvat Smritiva Sanabala Yuhava Narayana Namakam Sutam. So what happens was that Samrityu Kale, at the time of death, Yamaraja Kinkan, so one of the Kinkaran very very qualified Yamaraja. So he came, Yama himself came to take, at least Dutas came to take the life of Ajamila. Okay. Then, by called out in fright, so this the time of death, right, he knew he was going to die. At the time of death, he called out Juhava. So from his mouth came Narayana Namam. So that Namam came out of his mouth. And that just that utterance of that name set forth a lot of events which are going to follow. Okay, so Narayaniam also comes out that Shruti Smritibhyam Gita Pratadayah Punanti Papam Na Nunanti Vasanan Ananta Sevanu Vikrantati Dvayi Iti Prabhodvat Purusha Pavashiye. So a lot of this end with this last line, Iti Prabhodvat Purusha Pavashiye. So all everything, whatever gives you Shrutis, none of these will kind of liberate you from the the process of birth and death, but only the name and only the thought of Bhagavan, and only that will liberate you from the process of birth and death. And because of that, because the utterance of this name, all the Vishnu Dutas came and tried to confront the Yamadutas. So the thing is generally that all righteous. Yama is also not a bad person. Yama is also doing his duty. He is a righteous person. There is a Dharma Raja. Dharma is Yama. So basically, he is epitome of righteousness. So obviously, whoever is epitome of righteousness will also be a Bhakta of Parabrahma or Vishnu. Right? So no Narayana Nama he has said. So now all the Vishnu Dutas come and all the Yama Dutas. So all of them are actually Vishnu Dutas, but they are just doing their duty and they all come together. And then when they come together, a lot of discussion happens. Right? So Vishnu Dutas say, Sankte Yam Parisyamba Stobham Helanam Nevava Vaikunthanam Grahanam Ashesha Agaharam Viduhu. So one who chants the holy name of the Lord is immediately freed from the reactions of unlimited sins. Just that name alone is enough to be freed from unlimited sins. Vaikunthanama Grahanam. So of the Lord, Vaikunthanama. So the Lord of name of the Lord. Ashesha, unlimited. Unlimited sins are completely washed away by just the name. This type of thing I actually even remember telling it in my Ramayana lecture. Just the name is enough. This is one interpretation. The second interpretation which Dwarakesh was telling me about yesterday was that all his papas and punyas, right? Because chant the name of Narayana, all the papas got washed away. And because of the congregation of all these Narayana, Bhagavatas, they would come from both Yama's side and Vishnu's side. He was grateful to them. And then because of that, all his punyas also got washed away and he eventually attained moksha. That is the second interpretation. But the interpretation which endures is that just the name is enough. Right? This is the interpretation which kind of endures to me. So there are two songs which I wanted to sing. One is from Swati Tirunal's Ajamila Upakyanam. Both of them are in the Raga copy. I think due to paucity of time, I think I'll keep it short. I wanted to sing some Nrittam, but I'm not singing that. Shruti.
Yeah.
See. यदि हरि नाम पद यदि हरि नाम पद वही यदि हरि नाम पद वही यदि हरि नाम पद वही भवति यमानति भयमपि स्वप्ने यदि हरि नाम पद वही भवति यमानति भयमपि स्वप्ने सरसि जनाभ हरे नारायण 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 मानवेति निगत सुखेति सुखदमे मानवेति निगत सुखेति सुखदमे नाम सुधार हरि बरसने नारायण हरि गोविंदेति नाम सुधार This part of the Azamila Upakhyanam, that is. This particular one also composed this detailed plays. Azamila Upakhyanam, Kujela Upakhyanam. So all these are all like dramas. This song is a part of that. And so it just says, I mean, oh my tongue, do taste the nectarine glory of the Lord's name. If drinking the nectarine glory of the Lord's name does not satisfy any of the virtuous people. To taste, delight tasting the nectar of Harinama, you will not have fear of death even in your dream. This is the power of Harinama. Recite the name of Lord Sarasanabha, Narayana, Madhava, whether in misery or joy, always. So whatever be the situation, the name of the Lord should always be chanted. This is one of the songs. Another song is of course Tyagaraja. So obviously, this is a song on Rama, but for Tyagaraja it is well understood that Rama is famous Parabrahma. So I am equating Supreme Godhead with Rama in this song. So this is also in the Raga Kapi. Copy is very sweet raga to chant the name of God. So two songs I put in the same. It's at the end of all these events happened, and Padamira's life was not taken. So he eventually went to Vishnu temple near Haridwar, what is mentioned, and then he performed penance, and eventually he was directly taken into Vaikuntha. It's the end of happily ever after story. Last very small story is that of Vitrasura. This is also interesting, but takeaways you have to think of what take away from this. So basically, this story revolves around the concept of Brahma Hatya Dosha. So if you kill a Brahmana, it's considered, whoever does it is considered as sin. And Indra did it once. So basically, the Prajapati that time. So this Brahma, otherwise called as Prajapati, they are all the people for creation. So all this, they are the ones who rule over that particular cycle. So his was called that Prajapati was called Tvashta. So his son was Vishwarupa, who did all these penances, and Indra killed him because he thought he was helping both the Asuras and the Devas at the same time, and he was not being honest. So Vishwarupa was killed. And the father was Tvashta, was Prajapati, was very, very angry that Indra had killed his son. Right, so he performed the intense penance and tapas and yajna and whatever, and he was born, and out of that yajna was born a demon called Tvashta. A demon called Vritra. So Tvashta did penance, and after that he was called Vritra. He was a very fearsome form. So he said that he is called Vritra, or one who covers everything, because he covered all the planetary systems. He was like that type of figure, which was born out of sheer austerity of his father Tvashta. So this was obviously very problematic for the Indra, because he had just done Brahmatya Dosha, killed a Brahmana. Now this Vritra has also come up and threatening his position as ruler of Indra Loka. Okay, so after that he went again. Any problem, you go to Vishnu. So he went to Vishnu, and then Vishnu gave the assurance that okay, everything will be alright. It's like a usual thing in Hindi, we say "Sab theek ho jayega." So it was, everything will be okay, and he gave some action items, right? So you have to go and get body of one saint called Dadichi. So he was one of the very foremost rishis at that time, and he had to get his bones to augment that Vajra Ayuda of Indra. So that was done, and then he had a very powerful weapon of Vajra, which was augmented by Vishnu's blessings. And he also said that this particular Vitrasura, he was not a very bad person, in the sense that he was also a great Bhakta of Parabrahma. So he said, right, so Dhritarashtra is also a devotee of mine, so he will not harm you in any way. That's what Vishnu told Indra. And it is a very fierce battle. So this is again between two good people. So the always very difficult type of people to annihilate, right, or get rid of are the people who are actually bhaktas of Bhagavan. Always we have seen this, right? Anybody, even Ravana, right? He was a great devotee of Shiva. That's why it took so much effort to kill him. Because obviously, if you are a devotee of Bhagavan, you are knowledgeable, you are considered as very difficult to kill generally. But Dhritarashtra, he knew his situation, he knew his karma, he knew what he is supposed to do. He did his duty as he is supposed to do. So he has to fight is his duty. It's essentially this is another mini Arjuna Upadesha type of incident which happens here. So what happens is that Indra, right, hurls his thunderbolt at Dhritarashtra and his arm, I think right arm gets chopped off. And he loses some more of some weapons he loses and his arm also he loses. After that, I think Dhritarashtra is also very powerful. So he unleashes some his own weapons and then Airavata gets severely wounded on the head. And so both of them are fatigued and therefore since Dhritarashtra is a righteous person, right, once you hurl a weapon and then your Vahana is damaged, you are not supposed to again hurl more weapons at the same person. So Dhritarashtra was a very righteous man. He knew what is dharma, he knew everything. He was also a devotee of Parabrahma. So he said, he did not attack him any further. And then after that, he said, the only reason why I am attacking you today is that you have killed a Brahmana, you have killed my brother. The only reason why I am attacking you today. I am also the devotee of Parabrahma and so on. So what happened was that because of this attack, right, the attack on Dhritarashtra has already been damaged. His arms are, one of his arms are chopped off. But Indra, after this type of attack, Indra doesn't want to fight anymore. Right? He does not have no intention to fight. And again, the same type of Arjuna Upadesha type of thing happened. Right? So in this statement is said by Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra is a very great devotee of Bhagavan. यथा दारुमयी नारी यथा पत्रमयो मृगः एवं भूतानि भगवन् ईशा तंत्रानि विधिपोः. Okay, this okay Indra. Yatha, just as a wooden doll that looks like a woman or as an animal made of grass and leaves cannot move or dance independently, but depends fully on the person who handles it. Right? So yatha darumayi, just like a wooden doll, just like a patramayo, just like a animal made out of leaves, some bomma type of thing, right? It cannot move on its own, it cannot do anything on its own. You have to move it, you have to play with it and so on, right? So it depends fully on the person who handles it. Right? Just like that. Evam bhutani makhavani isha tantrani, isha tantrani. So on the tantra of Isha or on the mean. Because of that, we are also just mere dancers. So we are not, don't have any control of anything. It's just Isha Tantra which is happening and we are just playing the part of Isha Tantra. I mean, we are just playing like the role of a doll. The kind of controller of, under the control of Parabrahma. No one is independent. This is what he says. So, I mean, so again the same type of material thing, everything material is temporary and all that happens. Only the soul is permanent. This story again repeats. And then Indra hears all this and he says that Indra uvacha aho danava siddhosi yastyate mati ridhashi bhaktas sarvatmanatmanam sukritam jagat ishwaram. He says, okay, I see you that you are not a normal asura, right? You are not someone, you know what you are doing, you are also a devotee of Bhagavan, you are a friend of everyone. So Indra admits. And after that the war ends by both Dhritarashtra's arms are cut off. But even after that, right? So here the Bhagavata also praises Dhritarashtra more than Indra. If you read you will see in the POV of Dhritarashtra. So it's more like he's praising Indra. Every time Dhritarashtra does something good, everybody feels very happy, but then they are also sad that Indra is getting affected by that action. So it is like they don't know whose side to take. More like they feel happy at Dhritarashtra attacking Indra, but they also feel sad that Indra is going to die or something like that. So they feel this type of emotion. They are very difficult. Very Bhakta, two people who both of them are devotees of Bhagavan. If they attack each other, it will be very difficult to decide what is going to happen. It's a very big war and it's a very tough war for both people. And now both is Vritrasura gets both his arms cut off by Indra, and still always bleeding profusely is like so huge, right? Vritra covers everything. So he ended up swallowing Indra and his chariot. Indra and Bhagavata, both of them get swallowed. And because of the grace of Parabrahma, Indra does not perish the stomach of Vritrasura. Instead, Indra is still alive. And he uses that Vajrayuda, the power of Vishnu, and he pierces the stomach of Vritrasura, and that is the kind of end of Vritrasura. But it is not that simple. Okay? This is such a war, and it deserves a fitting ending. And the sloka is Vajrastutat Kandharam Asuvega Vintan Samantat Parivartamanaha Nyapatayattav Tavad Aharganena Yo Jyotisham Ayane Matrahatye. So it says all the thunderbolt, right? You fire a thunderbolt, you expect somebody to die in minutes, probably, right? But this is the beauty of the story, that it took Aharganena. So basically it is Tavad Aharganena, so many days, as Yo Jyotisham Ayane. So Ayane basically, Ayana basically means the movement of the celestial bodies. Right? So Ayana, so entire year, 360 days. Right? The time in which the sun, moon and other luminaries complete a northern and southern journey. So entire year has passed, and still the Vajrayuda is cutting through the body of Vritra, and it takes one whole year for that body to be completely killed. And then eventually he dies and he falls to the ground. That's the nature of this Bhakta, that it took so long. This is kind of show the greatness of this particular war, right? How fiercely contested it was. Even at the end, took so long for just the Ayuda to completely devour his body. After that it goes into many things. So basically again, because Indra has killed the Brahmana, again he has Brahmatya Pusha. So again he goes back and everybody say, after this war, Vritrasura has been killed, so everybody is very happy, but Indra is not very happy. So he has done Brahmatya Pusha. Again he goes down and he resigns from his position of ruler of Uttaraprabha. He resigns his resignation letter and goes. Then after that, one king from the earth is being brought up. His name is Nahusha. So that story is, I'm not going to cover that story. But after that, many other things happen. But essentially, the result, this story is basically again that Vritrasura, not if you are a Bhakta of Narayana, right? Three good things can happen to you and you will be powerful. Two Bhaktas of Narayana fight, then this type of great battle happens between Vritrasura and Indra. So, with that I will conclude. Anything else?
There is one Nama Prabhava Kirtanam from Krishna Lila Tarangini of Narayana Tirtha that he explains again. That he again explains the glory of Bhagavan Nama. He says, I'll just take 2 minutes to explain the. So, I'll just take 2 minutes to explain the meaning of that Kriti and we'll sing it. So, he says, Rama, Krishna, Govindeti, Rama Samprayogi. Just by chanting Rama or Krishna or Govinda, you get everything in life. Rama Nama Gangaya Sammilita Krishna Nama Yamune Govinda Nama Saraswati Pradite. You do not take one train at 10 p.m. from Central, travel for 1.5 days. From there, you do not take one bus, go to Prayagraj and do anything. Just chant Rama, that is Ganga. If you chant Krishna, that is Yamuna. If you chant Govinda, it is Saraswati. Chanting Rama, Krishna, Govinda itself is equivalent to taking Snanam in Triveni Sangam. Next someone asks, what are the things I should follow for chanting this? Should I take bath? Should I wear a body vastram? Don't touch anyone? Do meditation for 10 years and then chant. Dik, Desha, Kala, Anapeksha. You did not see what direction it is, what time it is, what you have taken bath, not taken bath. Wherever you are in the kitchen, you are in the hall, you are in the bathroom, wherever you are. Dik, Desha, Kala, Anapeksha. It does not take into account anything. Siddha Sarvanati. has it been approved? It has been approved by all the rishis. So he says like just by chanting Rama, Krishna, Govinda, you get everything. So that is the essence. Just one channel of the essence. We'll sing the entire.
जय राम राम पिता जीवन स्मरणं गोविंदा गोविंदा
Rama,
राम कृष्ण
Rama, Krishna.
राम कृष्ण गोविन्देति नाम संप्रयोगे सर्वोत्तम Hare